Hey everyone, this is your Minion to the East, and this is it's time for another late night rambles. And this is one I wanted to do on like well, all these videos are meant to be done on the fly, but this one got me thinking after watching one of Linkara's History of Power Rangers videos when it came to Mystic Force on his thoughts on people or about his own thoughts on watching something he's passionate about and being prepared to defend his own criticism. So then I got thinking recently when it comes to like shows that we thought were good but then were bad. Kind of the same thing like how when Doug Walker started Nostalgia Critic, like thinking, okay, I've watched these when I was younger. Maybe my thoughts have changed since then. It's kind of like that. But I wanted to go on the level and thinking not just nostalgic stuff, but bring up to the point of, wow, these shows really weren't good or probably told a terrible lesson than we thought they did. And this is more like on shows that were recent, not like shows that we watched way far back. If you looked at the title card, I wanted to talk about four specific shows that were on the top of my head I want to talk about on this particular topic. On why do people like watching shows when they figure out these were bad or flawed? The first notable example I want to talk about was Steven Universe. When it first came out, people liked how it looked. The art style was very unique at the time. People loved the world and the concept about about the crystal gems, the gems in general, the fusions, and the mystery that was surrounding them. And people loved it. After its first season, people wanted to see more, and we got more in coming season two. But by the time we got to season three, people started to see the cracks in the show when it came to the pacing of overall. As we were getting this buildup of a great threat that was coming towards Earth and something that was like within Earth as well. And over time, most of these threats became moot points. And I'm thinking, all right, this is probably not as good as we thought it was, but it might come back. But then everything changed when we got the 100th episode with Bismuth. And it got to the point where we thought we should kill the people that oppress our own people. And by all accounts, we've seen evidence of them corrupting their own people and leaving them practically for dead, and even killing them and causing probably mass genocide on all these planets. And our main character, Steven, says that we shouldn't be going to their own level, and we shouldn't kill them, even though that we are pretty much trying to forgive or trying to talk down to basically oppressors and dictators of their own world. I don't know if I brought this up back in my redemption arcs and why they scared me with late night rambles, but it was kind of tied down to that same reasoning. Like that has been a growing trend in the last 5 or so years, that many shows are trying to redeem villains that are obviously evil and people that realistically we should not try to talk down or convince them of what they're doing is bad and they'll automatically be good. That kind of shows a bit of lazy writing unless you know how to do redemption stories well. And for an example, you have to do a character's redemption that equals the crime that they committed. For example, and this is also recent, like in Power Rangers, the main villain from Power Rangers Lost in Space, she was one of the big bads, and from what many people considered to be the best season of Power Rangers at the time. Next season, when she regained her lost memories and turned good, she eventually became the Pink Ranger in that season. So she went from being evil to redeeming herself in the eyes of the Rangers to become the Pink Power Ranger. So it shows her progression of trying to be good, even at the point when she was brainwashed to being completely and utterly evil with no sense of who she was. Another good character that got redemptions, Dinobot from Beast Wars. He started off as part of the enemy team, and he tried to switch sides just so he can show his sense of honor and that he was a much better warrior, and felt that the people he sided with were incompetent. And there was a point where he betrayed his new allies, and it was at a point where he had no one trusting him at that point. It was up until his very last episode when he died that he fully redeemed himself and died a warrior's death. It kind of goes in that. But it makes me wonder, like, why people are so forgiving of these characters that do these evil things. I could go for the low-hanging branches, saying people don't know how to write properly, or are just starting to understand these concepts of writing. Or they felt that they really do believe that that there's real good, and that talking down to people is a good thing. The problem is you gotta find the right way to do these things. I just kind of wonder if this was a hindsight on the writers, or if they actually do believe of what they're trying to tell their audience and convey what the lessons they're trying to tell. Another flaw that Steven Universe got is inconsistent character scaling. Because if you look in the earlier episodes of Steven Universe, Steven is much taller than the counter, but in the later seasons, he's shorter than it. Maybe people can try to argue that is probably due to his gem heritage, that he's shrinking and growing based on his mood, but that's kind of a moot point when people don't have consistent height scaling with their characters. And there's a reason why there's ref size charts during the creation process of a show. Alright, the next show I wanted to talk about was the 2011 reboot of Thundercats. While I personally like the show, I think what it failed to try to do was grip an audience that, while it was ambitious to try taking an older 80s property and actually trying to be the next Avatar. Actually, that was another trend that was happening at the time, and kind of is still now, that people are trying to be the next Avatar. It was kind of uninspiring and at points pretty generic of what they were doing, which led to its low ratings. And there was going to be a second season, and the show was going to have 2 seasons, so I can't really complain if they only did 2 seasons, so they didn't have to go too long. But I think it failed to grip an audience, which is why that even when they tried to see if there was new interest by shoving it around to other networks, it didn't last very long. It had a nice animation budget and a nice voice cast, but what it failed to do was tell a story and have good characters that can grip an audience and have you be invested. That's another thing that people try to push out there, is have something stick that they think their audience would like, and I'm also trying to replicate something that was done before, but feels that it will just be a major success. And then there are people out there that like seeing or feeling the same thing that they've got from another show, which isn't bad, because that's how people usually get interested in finding new stuff to get them interested from the start. Like when it comes to movies. Maybe you saw a Marvel movie that wasn't done by the MCU, or like you haven't been introduced to the MCU, and it's like, okay, I like these characters, I like this concept, I want to see what more of this. And then you see something similar like the MCU, it's like, okay, I'll watch that. And you come out of it and saying, you know what, this was done better. I might have liked the other product that I liked before, but the one that these people did was way better. It's kind of like the same thing, but in this case it was reversed. That the previous product that you watched or played was way better than the one that you had high hopes for. That's kind of what a lot of people like go around lately, like shoving suggestions to other people, saying, hey, watch this, it's kind of like blah blah blah. And it gives people a bit of high expectations, or too high of expectations, that they feel like, okay, it's going to be exactly the same thing, which in the end it probably won't. That's kind of the same thing when The next show I'm going to bring up is Legend of Korra, which is actually a sequel to Avatar, and people had high hopes for it being a sequel, and it was done by the same creators. What the problem with that show was it had very flawed storytelling, and it failed to live up to the hype that was Avatar. I mean, I remember watching the first two seasons, and people weren't invested at all. Not to mention that it was each season was in shorter length than regular Avatar seasons, and many of the people that they said that was the weakest element were the villains and some of the slice of life stories that were going on at the time. And it kind of hindered when they stuck you to one location like for an entire season, when one of the main fun points of the original Avatar was it was an adventure and you were going to so many places. While it was an overarching story, you had pit stops along the way to make it feel like an adventure while still progressing with the main story going forward. Korra felt like it was stuck for the first two seasons, and from people who liked Korra, they said the third season to them was the best, but by the time the third season rolled around, viewership wasn't as high, which is come season 4, it was then relegated to being online content exclusive, which didn't make people that happy to begin with, so it made it feel like Nickelodeon was just putting Korra to the side since it wasn't going to bring them the big bucks as it was before. And again, for a lot of people, the last two seasons for them were considered the quote-unquote best. Even at the time, there was, or even now, I should say, it still has flawed parts in the story. And much like Thundercats 2011, I also personally liked the Legend of Korra series, but it is a lesser version of Avatar. And then the final season final show I should talk about is Digimon Fusions. The reason I wanted to talk about this one was because this was meant to be like an anniversary or a celebration of Digimon itself, since for the final season, more specifically the final episodes, they brought in a bunch of the characters like from across the Digimon dimensions. It kind of like went back to this traditional formula of trying to save the digital world, and it had peppy characters, an overall fun cast and concept. The problem is you've made very simplified characters that didn't have good personality to begin with. The concept itself was pretty butchered or wasted potential, and it had, quite honestly, to me, one of the least interesting looking seasons of the entire show, or in the entire series. I know because for people with season 5, Savers, which they think is the worst season, I feel that it's really overlooked when it came to its storytelling and the characters, and maybe it's because of its different art style as well. But people still say it's Digimon. It goes back to its traditional roots. It tells like its most simplified characters. The problem with that is that when you try to do simplified characters, you're neglecting the development and the advanced storytelling that you were doing, that you were proving upon the later seasons after like the original. There's also that problem that if you try to go back to, like, say, something that was what made something good from the original, you're going to a point that you're neglecting like the improvements you made over the years. So, which is also kind of the another point that I feel people bring up with some other shows lately, that they're trying to be more dark. And people like darker things. They like to see the things that become more edgy or adult. Because when you get older, you want to see more adult things in your content. Like, you want to branch out a bit. But you still want to be in your comfort zone, so to say. And that's kind of like when it comes back to Thundercats and Korra. They tried going a little more darker, edgy route with their content material. Thundercats back in the 80s was campy, your typical 80s animation and marketing stuff. Like, they just tell stories that sell toys and all that. While the 2011 reboot tried to be all serious, trying to tell a grand story, and trying to be the next Avatar. In Korra's case, same thing. They were trying to cater to the Avatar fan base that was with them since Avatar started, while at points neglecting to bring in new people who've never seen Avatar, and you're just going to leave people out in the dark, trying to make it its own thing. Instead, they tied it down to the past series that was before, and it also, and while it tried to expand the world that it was in, it also neglected to tell a cohesive story to go with it. So it all comes back to what I wanted to bring up in the main point. Why do people like shows that maybe they eventually see isn't as good as they thought it was from the first time they watched it? I do go back to that one thing that I brought up at the beginning about being passionate about what you watch. If you like a show, go ahead and like what you want to watch. The main point is you're going to have to be aware of the criticism that comes out of it. Like, all these shows, save for probably elements of Digimon Fusions, I still enjoy, but I know there are severe flaws with them. And as a creator, like, I do my own writing, I have to learn from the mistakes. That's kind of like when I watch other content creators out there who do their own reviews. The majority of them I watch do it so they can tell future generations of creators of, you're free to like what you like, but you have to be also aware of the flaws that they come with and not be too blind as to ignore them because they might, quote unquote, hurt your feelings. And that's the kind of the harsh reality you got to bring up, is that not everything that you like is perfect, of course. You need to see the flaws in any product that you come across. And if you start to feel like it wasn't as good and you feel, is that, but I like it, but it's not as good, just enjoy the stuff that you like to begin with. Like, don't be immediately throw away what you like to begin with. You just gotta argue your own point and stand your ground on why you like it, but also try to be critical in your thinking of what was good and what was bad, or what you thought was good and bad. It all comes down to being passionate of what you like, but also trying to be critical on what was negative and what doesn't work in the overall grand scheme of things. That's why I wanted to bring up, because I know there are points that people try to bring up saying, I would not show this to my child and all that. And of course, people are all free to also show or don't want to show their children when they do eventually become or have families. It all comes down to your personal preference, your critical thinking, and your final judgment overall. And that's all I wanted to talk about for tonight. It's something that was on my mind as of late, and I wanted to bring it up. That it all culminated to tonight, at least. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you liked it, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe for more videos. And if you like this video, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. So with that said, this has been your Minion East. So until next time, take care, everyone.